Hello everybody and welcome to Free Spirit TV, Information Beyond Mainstream. Today I'm very pleased to present to you Carolyn Bramhall. Carolyn is a trained counselor as well as a survivor of ritual abuse who has healed from dissociative identity disorder. She is the founder of Heart for Truth, an organization that educates churches how to help those suffering with trauma-related problems. I'm looking forward to talk with her about her story and her mission to help people heal from such horrendous childhood hurts. Stay tuned.
Hier noch eine Nachricht in eigener Sache. FreeSpirit-TV ist eines von mehreren Projekten des FreeSpirit-Bewusstseinstrainings. Dieses Training ist ein hervorragendes Konzept für Menschen, die einfach mehr vom Leben wollen. Wenn du dich nach etwas sehnst, sei es, dass du noch glücklicher sein möchtest oder reicher, gesünder oder nach einer tollen Beziehung, wenn du dich beruflich auf deine Vision konzentrieren und noch so einiges anderes verwirklichen möchtest, dann empfehlen wir dir von ganzem Herzen das FreeSpirit Bewusstseinstraining. Du findest es unter www.freespiritinfo.com. Ah ja, und noch etwas. Da immer mehr alternative Kanäle im Internet unterdrückt werden, wissen wir nicht, wie lange wir dort noch senden können. Für den Fall, dass die uns das Licht abdrehen, sei vorbereitet und abonniere daher unbedingt unseren Newsletter auf freespirit-tv.ch. Danke und schön, dass es dich gibt.
Hello Carolyn, welcome to Free Spirit TV. Thank you for taking the time to talk about your childhood experiences and of course also about your healing path.
Yes, it's an exciting journey.
I believe that. Let's jump right in. Tell us about your childhood. How was your childhood? Were you a happy child?
Well, I thought at the time, yes, I was happy, I think. We lived in a little village in south of England. Mm-hmm. My family, my mother was one of 9 children. So there was a big family, lots of cousins, and the village was populated by our family. I think we went to the village school. I went to dance lessons and lived in the countryside. I knew where the birds built their nests. And yes, I had a remarkably ordinary childhood, I would say.
Sounds like it.
Yes, some people would say it was idyllic. It was something that people, we went to local school, and I loved the outdoors. I loved gardens and gardening. I loved all kinds of creatures. And so I was outside a lot. And I had a twin sister as well. She was very different from me. She liked pop music and boys. And my childhood was a fun childhood, I would say, but I was a very lonely little girl and liked to spend a lot of time on my own in the countryside.
Okay, so not so many friends around. Okay, just
I had friends. I did have friends, had a lot of friends, but I always felt different from my friends. I always felt that there was something about me and my life that was not the same as theirs, but could never quite understand what that might be.
So it was more a feeling inside that you were being alone. Yeah.
It was a feeling inside. As a young teenager, I spent more and more time on my own. And by the time I was 16, I had started to hurt myself and cut myself secretly with my mother's bread knife. And I am sure nobody would have any clue why I would do that. So there were some mysteries in my life as well.
And what do you believe went wrong? What led you to being so ill?
Well, it looked at the time as if I was getting depressed in myself. And I think really I just didn't feel like other people. I'd become a Christian when I was 14, which was a huge, huge thing for me to do. I stood in the middle of the field near our home, and I looked up to the blue, blue sky, and it was very early on a February morning, and the grass was sparkling with the frost, and I looked up to the sky and I said, God, I know about you, but do you know about me? And in an instant, I knew that the answer was yes. And the grass seemed greener and the sky seemed bluer. And I ran home and I ran into my bedroom and got on the floor and put my hands together. And I said, oh God, I want to love you more. Will you come into my life? And he did. And it changed my life. But it also began a strange feeling of needing to run away from something bad.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until I had left school and I'd gone to Bible college, because I wanted other people to know this God who loves us, and fell in love with a man at Bible college called John. And we, after college, we went to the north of England and we started a work with young people. And we worked with the youth in 6 different churches. We did a lot of work with young people.
Mm-hmm.
And it was wonderful. But I'd started to get very depressed. And I heard voices in my head that I didn't understand. And they were telling me that I was bad.
Mm-hmm.
Yet here I was doing good things, helping young people to find an identity and to find God and to find joy. And I was playing the guitar and leading singing and taking the young people on outings and doing all kinds of things. Our home was open to the youngsters, and they would come at all hours of the day and night and
Nice.
eat our food and drink our coffee and spill our coffee in our carpets and all the things that young people do. And I was speaking at meetings and praying for people with deep needs and helping people and visiting the sick. And yet I felt I was evil. And there was something bad going on in my life that I didn't understand. And I began to wonder if there was something that I didn't know about in the past. But I didn't understand what was going on. And I became iller and iller. And I used to see visions of things. And I was very confused about what might be happening to me.
Mm-hmm. And how old were you at that point when that happened?
When all this was happening, I was in my early 20s.
That was early 20s. Mm-hmm.
And so by this time, I'd left college, married John, moved north to go and live in a city in the north, in Bradford, and had 2 gorgeous children. There was absolutely no reason why I should be unhappy.
Mm-hmm.
I felt fulfilled in what I was doing, and John and I worked together with the young people full time. And yet there was something badly wrong. And I had night terrors of strange things, evil things. And I shocked myself with the things I thought I was imagining. And I thought I must be very bad.
Mm-hmm.
And then we felt called by God to go to America. And we had the opportunity to go to California and work in a church in Clovis, California. And it was a wonderful opportunity. Of course we'll go. And we upped sticks. We left everything. We sold our house and we gave away most of our possessions. And we had 4 suitcases and 2 children and left everything and went to California. And that's where things started to go a little bit wrong.
Okay, what happened then there? Was there some kind of trigger?
Yes, when I was in California, we'd started a home for women who had been abused. And it was a refuge. And we lived by faith. We didn't have an income. We didn't have a wage. We weren't allowed to get one at that point anyway, because we didn't have a green card and all the papers that we needed to have. So we were living by faith and trusting God every day for our food and the things we needed to keep alive and the children in school and that kind of thing. And that was exciting and scary. And we opened a home, were invited to open a home for these women. And it was, nobody knew we were there. And it, strangely, we had no money. And yet, money always came when we needed it. For example, there was one time when we'd run out completely of toilet rolls. And they'd said, staff had said to me, what are we going to do? And I said, we have no money. And there were women and children staying in the home. Mm-hmm. And I went to church the next day. And after church, said nothing about it. After church, a lady came up to me feeling very bashful. And she said, can I give something to you? I said, yes, that'll be lovely. Just bring it in, because I was having coffee with my friends. And she stood at the doorway and said, do you really want me to bring it in? I said, yes. She brought in a big black plastic bag full of toilet rolls.
No way.
I hope you don't mind. I just felt you needed these. I had said nothing to anybody. And we had lots of things like that happen when God provided our needs. So, but one day I was in a kind of a conference, a workshop, because I wanted to understand crisis pregnancy. Mm-hmm. Why people women who'd been raped, and I wanted to understand how to counsel them and help them, because we were getting young women who were pregnant coming to our home, and they were in danger. And I was watching the screen, and they showed me a picture of an abortion. Mm-hmm. And I saw it, and I immediately felt overcome with panic, and I collapsed. And I was completely out cold. And they called the paramedics. And this being California, it wasn't just the paramedics, it was the police and the fire service people. And they're all very big, and I'm just very, very tiny. And I opened my eyes, and they were putting one of those neck braces on me. And I had a fluid in my arms, and they took me out on a stretcher with the sirens going. And it's like, all that for me. Mm-hmm. I'd come round and I was absolutely fine. But when I got to the hospital, they asked me about all these scars on my hands. And I was bleeding. And they said, did you put those scratches and those cuts on your hands? And I said, I don't know. Mm-hmm. Because I couldn't remember doing them. And they put me in a mental ward, a psychiatric ward. And when they asked me questions about my childhood, I couldn't answer them. I just got angry, and I said I was never a child. Mm-hmm. And they kept me in until the money ran out, and then let me go. And then I saw a therapist, and I didn't know what was going on for me. And he began to ask some very awkward questions, because Christopher, my therapist, started to uncover childhood abuse that was so horrific. I thought I must be making it up. It was a horrible time. And I felt that I must be really mad, because I'm starting to talk about things that nobody had ever heard of. Mm-hmm. Satanists and being drugged and being hurt in horrible ways that are difficult to even talk about to anybody else. And I started to say things to Christopher. And I didn't know why those things were coming out of my mouth. And then at the end of one session, I was cross with him because I'd only just arrived. And he said, it's time to finish. And he said, no, you've been here an hour and a half.
Mm.
And it's like, I haven't, I've just come. And he said, yes, you have, but I've been talking to a little girl. And then we began to realize that there was something really badly happening, really important happening to me.
That was the point where you probably realized that there were different personalities inside of you, right?
Yes. Christopher started to record, first of all, audio recording, and then video recording of the sessions, so that I could watch to see what I was saying to him. And it appeared that one by one, other parts of me that I did not know were there were coming with a completely different identity. They were different ages, had different voices, different stances. Some of them were very small and timid, and some of them were very big and brash. Some of them swore. And I don't do that, but they did. They had language skills that I did not possess or want to possess. They started talking about events that were absolutely shocking, that happened when I was a child, in a churchyard, in a church, in the belfry where they rang the bells, in big old buildings. And I could only listen and be horrified until very gradually I began to realize that they were talking about me and what happened to me when I was a little girl.
Gracious.
And one by one, these parts came and talked to Christopher and told their stories.
Did he have experience with this at all? Or was that new to him too? Okay.
It was new to him too. And so I know I only learned afterwards that he was as scared as I was. And he would email and talk to people all around the world trying to find out what to do with this woman. She's saying this and that, and nobody quite knew what to do with that. But he learned a lot, so did I. And our relationship was a very good relationship. And I also began to have friends around me in the church. John and the children had to return to England because the visa had run out.
Okay. But you could stay there, right?
I shouldn't have. I was against the law. I was illegal. I was homeless. I had to say a very, very sad goodbye. And I said to John, you go home. I'll soon be sorted out. A couple of weeks, maybe a month or two at the very most. I'll get rid of these silly ideas that I have of something bad happening to me. I had a nice childhood. And then I'll come back and I'll join you and the children and we'll start a new life again in England, maybe in a different part of England.
And how did they react to that idea?
Well, John was not that comfortable, but he knew that something was happening me. And I needed the help that Christopher was giving me. And I said, I won't be long. And the children were very upset. But I was very upset, very, very. When I said goodbye to them at San Francisco airport, I cried and cried and cried. How could I live without my beautiful children?
That's actually the part of your book where I cried too. I was reading it in your book here. You're describing this situation, and I remember that was really, really painful to actually read that. Yeah,
that was horrible. And I thought, I'm going to get sorted out, and then I can go back. It was to be 3.5 years. before I was to see my beautiful children again.
Wow, that's
And
a long time.
it's a very long time. And the most painful thing about my story, really, for me, is I had to leave them without a mummy. And at night time, I would think, who would stroke Luke's cheek just the way he likes me to do it? Who will cut their fingernails the way they like? What about my little girl's hair? I did it in long plaits with big ribbons that matched her outfit. Would John do that the same way that Mummy did that? No, he wouldn't. And little things used to really upset me. But I wrote to them frequently, and I was sure that I would be going back. But once they'd gone, it's almost like the whole of my system, all of me, all the parts were free to completely fall apart, really.
Okay.
And they were free to tell their story, and without the responsibility of looking after a husband and children.
Yeah, I think that would just have been too much for you maybe at that point, right?
I think it's probably the best thing that could have happened, as horrible as it is not to be with your family. And so I worked very, very hard at trying to make progress, because with DID, which is what this splitting is called, dissociative identity disorder, it means that part of your psyche, part of your mind has had to segregate itself, to split away from the rest of you to hold those bad memories. And so I had lots of parts.
How many?
109.
109.
Yes.
Wow.
And some of them were children that were frightened and tearful and had horrible things to say. Some of them were just cute. Some of them held memories of one particular person or one particular emotion. And together they made up me, but they were all fragmented. And the process is really for each one to tell their story, to be believed, to feel safe. And then I could integrate them into me and become a whole me. So nothing's lost, but it's hard work.
I believe that. And how do you actually feel in this process? What is your personality? I believe it's called your core personality, right?
Yes.
How can you figure that out?
Well, I had to learn very quickly what was going on. And I did learn, and Christopher was a help. And I had some really good friends around me from the church. And once a month, they'd meet with me and they'd listen to my stories from different parts that came out. And so that was filmed as well. So I've got it all on film. And one by one, some of my alters, they're called, the other parts, alternate alters would come and say, this is what Carolyn has been doing, and this is what's happened here, and this is what we were remembering. They didn't tell the details. And they would say which ones had integrated, and which ones were being naughty, and which ones were running away. And being able to talk about that outside of therapy to friends, and to have them believe me and love me, all of me, in my different parts, was hugely helpful. Hugely helpful. And so I began not to feel mad or foolish, but just God has somehow equipped me, as he does others, with this ability to split off so that I kept sane and I could live a normal life, or quite a normal life, at home as a little girl, without the burden of knowing that in the night these horrific things had been happening.
That's powerful. And what about, you got the help there in the States, but then you actually returned to the UK. How came this step about?
Yes. Well, I felt it was important that eventually I stopped being a victim. I wasn't completely free. I still had alters. And this had been going on. I'd lived without my husband and children for 3.5 years. And I'd worked very hard. I had therapy twice a week. I'd done lots and lots of, I'd made lots of friends and helped in the church and taught people, and even had a little group of other people who were DID that I helped to look after. But there comes a point when you think, I can't carry on being this victim forever. I could make a career of remembering. I've got to stop that. There comes a point where I have got to choose, am I going to be a mother and a wife or not? Am I going to be strong enough to go back into the role that I know I need to have? And somehow, with all that I've learned about myself and my past, somehow come to grips with that and make a new life. So even though my therapist and some other friends didn't think it was a good idea, others did and supported me, I didn't have any money. So I sold what I had just to pay for the fare to go home, and joined my husband and children, thinking there'll be somebody who understands in England, who I can carry on seeing for help. When I got home, John and the children were glad to see me, but it wasn't the same family that I left. After 3.5 years, it won't be. And I didn't find anybody who understood.
No,
I was very lonely, and I was determined to be the best wife and the best mother I could be, but I still had these memories and these other parts that kept coming out because I knew who they were now, and they were talking to me and arguing with me and on the inside, and I wanted to switch into other parts, and it wasn't okay to do that with two children. And John was pleased to see me, but it took a long time to regain that trust. And with my children, I loved them with all my heart, but it took them, particularly my little girl, a bit of a time to adjust to having mummy there. And the church friends weren't at all sure. I couldn't explain to them what had happened. Nobody understands satanic ritual abuse. They would think, what are you talking about? You're crazy. That doesn't happen in today's day and age. It doesn't happen. It would not be appropriate. And I had to keep those secrets. And yet I still had these awful nightmares and feelings and visions in my head. It was a very hard time.
Yeah, I believe that. Can you say something about satanic ritual abuse?
Satanic ritual abuse happens to children and vulnerable adults who find themselves embroiled in some way in a group of Satanists, which in some countries is seen as a religion. And they will abuse people in creative and horrifically cruel ways, feeling that the more they hurt an innocent victim, and it could be an animal, it could be a person, a child, a vulnerable adult, by hurting them, they will gain power for themselves. And of course, satanic power is all about being able to have power and control over somebody or something else. it's almost always takes place at night time in secret locations. People have written films and books about it, thinking that it's Halloween. People think is a lot of fun, all a bit of nonsense. Mm-hmm. It really, really is not. It's reflecting things that happen today. And there are many, many people around the world. I speak to them with the same stories that I have, the same details, the same kinds of abuse, using the same instruments of torture in the same ways all over the world. And it's happening today in your country, in my country, and all over the world. And I hear them, I see them, I know these people. It's all very secret, and very, very few cases has been successfully brought to court.
Mm. Yeah,
because I think there's so much fear surrounding it.
Right, so much fear, and also, of course, the problem of the DID itself, right? It's really hard to go in court with these cases if they're not healing, or if they're not whole again, these people, right?
Well, you don't sound a very credible person if one moment you're talking as a respectable, intelligent adult, and the next minute you're in a little tiny child voice, saying things in a little tiny child way. That is immediately written off. You're an unstable personality. You've got mental health problems. We cannot believe that person. Satanists know what they're doing. These days, they know how to create DID in a young child. They know how to do it. Child soldiers, for example, are often completely fragmented. And when they're adults, they are not stable personalities because they're so broken.
Yeah.
It happens all over, and it's very sad. But until recently, DID has not been recognized in a court of law. I think that's changing.
Yeah, I've heard, I think so too, yeah.
Yes.
There is hope, especially because people like you're out there spreading a message that this is really real, right? But it's also possible to heal it. So that's really important message.
It is absolutely possible to heal it. In fact, it's one of them, out of all the so-called mental problems or thought disturbances, it's one of the, if not the most likely one to be healed, and can be healed without medical intervention as well.
Yeah, I think that would probably be a problem if you would actually take medication at this time, right? At this point, when you're having that.
Well, some people just don't respond to medication. People with DID are often given antipsychotic drugs, and they're not psychotic.
Right.
So it might make them sleepy or something, but it won't change them because they haven't got a mental illness. And it's called DID, dissociative identity disorder, but it's not really a disorder at all. It's a very orderly thing to do. It's a very sensible thing to do when overwhelming trauma is coming your way and you don't know what to do with it. It's a very sensible thing to put it in little parcels in other parts of your mind so that you can carry on skipping to school and doing your homework without that burden.
Right. It's protection mechanism.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. And for people who can't really relate to that, how is it to live with DID?
It's very, at the time, DID is an absolute blessing. It keeps you alive and it keeps you sane. When you're an adult and when you have responsibilities and when hopefully the danger has passed, then it's an absolute nuisance. You don't want to be switching and all. Sometimes a day will go past and you can't remember anything about that day. It's not an easy thing. Sometimes you recognize there are things in your possession and you don't remember buying them. You have people greet you in the street as if they knew you, and you think, I don't know who they are, because another part has made friends with somebody. And the worst thing is what's going on in your head, the tormenting, because most survivors of abuse are told that if you tell your story, you will be in big trouble. You will be hurt even more. Or if you don't do this, I will hurt somebody you love. So sometimes in SRA, you're saying, well, either you commit this atrocity on your best friend, another child, or we do it to you. You choose. Impossible choices.
Yeah.
So as an adult, with all that going on in your mind, it's very difficult to live. It's exhausting because you're living 20, 30, 50, 100 lives at once. There's conflict all the time. There's headaches. You're up all night because an altar wants to do something else. It is very hard. One of the most difficult things is being believed. And people are not believed because it seems incredible, although it is amazing.
Yes, it is.
But the good thing is that it is something that anybody can heal from with support. And I say to people, you alone can do it, but you can't do it alone.
Mm-hmm.
It's something you have to do. You can't expect other people to make you better. They can support you. They can listen to you. They can love you. They can stand with you. They can cheer you on when it's getting tough. They can send WhatsApps and make you chocolate cakes and all the other things that help. But you have to go through the trauma of remembering and telling your story and welcoming those parts into you. You can't do it by yourself.
Yeah.
You need people, loving, caring people around you.
And that's what you had. That's really great. What was actually the great turning point for you?
When I came back from America, I had a string of people who wanted to help. Therapists, other people who didn't help, who tried to, people from the National Health Service, and I went up to a hospital in London because I thought they were going to help me, and they didn't at all. Some really stories that weren't so happy. When I found some people who accepted me totally, some Christian people, and they said, we don't understand everything that's going on for you. We don't understand SRA. We've never heard of DID, but we love you just the way you are. And we know, these were Christian people, that nothing is too hard for them. Nothing. And in that, because we know that, we're going to stand with you until you get through. So we can listen to you. But the biggest thing is that all survivors, they struggle. In fact, most of our struggles are because we believe lies about ourselves, that we're not good enough, or that nobody will ever love us, or that we're dirty, or bad, or rubbish, or a mistake. We all have something that is a lie, that's negative, that eats away at our mind. And I really believed I was very dirty. Dirty things had happened to me. Therefore, I must be dirty. That was a lie. And when I began to exchange that lie and all the other ones I had for the truth, and the truth is that God says I'm beautiful. and I'm lovely, and I'm lovable, and that I'm clean, because I believe that those who come to Christ can be forgiven. That's my faith. And I thought, well, if I'm forgiven from everything that I've done that's bad and wrong, including those horrible things that I was made to do as a child, then I am squeaky clean inside. And I can be lovable. And maybe other people, maybe they do love me. Maybe God might think I'm okay. And as I started to exchange the lies for the truth, it almost was like I was growing on the inside and becoming stronger until all the parts of me integrated. And I could look at anybody and say, this is me. I'm not ashamed of who I am. I'm glad to be alive. I'm so glad that I've gone through what I have, because now I have something to offer other people who are going through that. And I can offer hope. And if I can do that, then it might not seem very much, but it's what I have, and it could change a life.
Oh, yes, of course.
So that's what I do. Yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So you would say, did you have actually therapy as well? And then the love of your friends and the love of Christ that helped you become whole?
Well, I had a bit of therapy when, I had one with a lovely lady called Judy, which helped a lot. But that was not what made me whole. I had moved house after a while, so I couldn't see Judy. We'd moved to a completely different place so that John and the children and I could start again. And so nobody knew us, and I didn't know anybody that could help. And I met these people from an organization called Freedom in Christ. And they said, yes, well, we're going to stick with you. We're not therapists. In fact, they'll run a mile from a therapist, from doing any kind of supporting role or anything like that. But what was lovely was that they said, we're just going to stick with you. And I saw them a few times, and my alters trusted them and talked to them. And they were the ones that helped me integrate. Just ordinary people. There was a librarian, a businessman, a pastor, all sorts of people. And they were just ordinary, and they said, Carolyn, we love you in Christ. And we're just going to stay around until you're free. And then we're not going to go anywhere after that either. And they are still my friends. And because I began to see myself in a different way, it changed hugely the way I saw the world. And it gave me hope. And yes, there was some guidance along the way. And I'd already had an understanding from Christopher. So I knew what I needed to do, but they couldn't do it for me. So when it was hard, they said, you can do this, Carolyn. You can do this. And they cheered me on. And that's what I do today, really, with other people.
That's just great. So thank you so much for your work you're doing. It's so important. What would you say? Can anybody help someone struggling with this? What would you say to someone watching who may know someone who shows similar characteristics?
I would say anybody who has love in their hearts can stand by somebody who is struggling and say, you can do this. We're going to stick around until you do. I think anyone can do that. And what happens quite often is that when we realize that somebody is struggling with something we don't understand, we want to back away. And we back away not because we don't care, but we think we might do them some harm. But if we were to go a little bit closer and say, tell me how to help you, show me what to do, explain to me what that's like, I want to learn. And we become the learners and they become the teacher, it's reversed a little bit, but that helps a lot. When people have said to me, I don't understand all of this, why don't you explain it to me? That was like, oh, at last somebody really wants to know. They're not going on their own agenda. They want to really understand. And they're not so proud that they can't learn from somebody who they see as a little bit crazy. And
yeah, I think that's very important to have such people around yourself, right?
yes, and any of us can be like that. It means putting away all our preconceptions, all the ideas that we had of what is right and wrong, and say, I'm going to learn from this person because I want to stand with them. I can't be up here on a pedestal. I know what to do, and I'm going to pull up my sleeves and help this poor person. Because that kind of says there's a them and an us. That says that there are those people who are broken, who are hurting, who need sorting out. And then there are those of us who have got it all together and we're going to help. Life isn't like that. I can learn from anybody, however broken and messed up they are. And they can learn something from me, however broken and messed up I am. Because we're all people and we all need each other, don't we? Yes, and God made us for community. We are wired like that. And I think if we have a little bit more humility, perhaps, and for those of us who are victims or survivors, have a little bit more courage to open up a little bit more and take that step of saying, I really need you to understand. Will you hear me for a little while I explain? Then we can link arms in all our different shapes and sizes and go forward together.
That's a nice picture you're drawing. Would that be actually your advice for someone who identifies DID or SRA by himself?
In themselves, you mean they understand it? I would say if you can find somebody who understands it, might be a therapist. And there are counsellors and therapists who do know what they're doing, but there are plenty who don't and will perhaps lead you on a path that isn't helpful. And I've had lots of people come to me with that story. And it isn't that the therapist doesn't care, they just might have it wrong. But there are plenty of people out there who absolutely want to help you because they love you. Yes. So find those people and begin to form a relationship with stable, good people. If they're Christian people, that's even better because they can draw on the love of Christ. But if you're not a Christian or you're not in that kind of environment, then you'd seek out those people who are good, trustworthy people and take that risk of saying, I want to share something that maybe you won't believe at first. Hear me out because I need you. And it takes a brave person to do that. But actually, if somebody came to me and said, I need you to help me, well, I'm sure if they said that to you, there aren't many of us that would say, no, go away. Yeah. Most good people would say, I want to be there for you. So it's that bravery, and it's not doing it by yourself and not isolating yourself. And if that person doesn't help, well, pick yourself up, find somebody else. But even better, find a group of people, a friendship group, which is what I do now in my work with Hertfordshire. Help people to do.
Yeah, you actually were the founder of Heart for Truth. When did you start that, and why is it called that?
Well, I started 12 years ago because I began to tell my story in meetings that the Freedom in Christ organization organized. And I used to have lots of people queuing up saying, it sounds like somebody I know. You're describing somebody that I'm familiar with. Or they'd say, you're saying things that make me feel uncomfortable inside because actually you're describing me. But nobody has ever said that before. So I began to realize there are a lot more people out there than we first thought with issues like mine. And so I thought I'd start my own ministry with the blessing of Freedom in Christ and their support, which I still have. And I gathered a few people together and we started Heart for Truth. And it's called Heart for Truth because I'm searching for people who have a heart for the truth of who we really are. We're not rubbish. People are not objects to be abused or used or dismissed because they're too messed up. Every individual is precious and beautiful with huge potential. Everybody watching today, we are all precious, wonderful people of worth and value. They deserve the best. And I want to find people with a heart to give that truth. They are loved. Mm-hmm. And it's God's love that inspires me to do that. And so we work primarily with churches, but I work with anybody who want to hold on to those truths that people.
Okay.
So that's why
and what are you doing there in this organization exactly?
Primarily, it's a teaching organization. So churches quite often, or counselling centres, get in touch and they'll say, I'm trying to help somebody who doesn't seem to be getting better. We've done all that we know to do, but they're always the same. They're unhappy, they have nightmares, they might be self-harming, they might be going in and out of a psychiatric hospital, always on the fringe of things, never getting better, and they don't know what to do. And I will say to them, well, they'll say to me, can you help them? And I will say, yes, I can, but I'm not going to help them. You're going to help them. Oh, well, I can't. Yes, because I'm going to show you how. So we will sometimes visit the church, or these days, of course, it's online, on Zoom or Skype or something like that. And I explain what DID, if that's what the situation is, how they can understand it, how a group of people can gather around them and walk with them, because recovery from trauma, any trauma, takes time. It's a process. Mm. And it doesn't work with 1 hour a week in a therapy room and then the rest of the week you're all by yourself and you've got to somehow negotiate through an unsafe world. When we're recovering from trauma, it's a daily thing. We need to wake up in the morning and know that there is somebody somewhere who would be pleased to see us or hear from us. Mm. We need to know that when we have a crisis, as horrible as it is, and your heart thumps and you feel panicky and you don't know what to do, and you might want to take some pills or cut yourself or hurt yourself or hurt somebody else, when all those feelings come, that's bad enough. But when you don't know what to do with them, you don't know if there's anybody out there who will listen, that's even worse. Mm-hmm. But when you have those feelings, and they come, and we know they come sometimes to those who have been traumatized, you know exactly who's around for you. You know, if today I'm going to see if I can hang on for another hour I know I'm going to see somebody for coffee. If I can hang on a few hours, I'm going to be able to ring somebody, or they're going to contact me. And then tomorrow morning, there's somebody else who's going to be there for me. If you know that there are people who love you enough, even if it's just to spend 15 minutes on a phone call, they're there, then that crisis is able to come right down, and you think, I'll hang on. I know I can, because somebody loves me enough to listen. And in that time between having the crisis moment and seeing that friend, in that time, we learn to call upon our own resources, and we get strong. And if you have a faith, you call upon God or your God, or you do whatever you need to do to strengthen yourself. And then when you do see your friends or speak to them, it's celebration time. Yes, you've done this. This is wonderful. Yeah. And you think, yes, I can do this. You're stronger for next time.
That's true. Yeah, it makes so much sense. Yeah. Because then you're not alone and you're trying to do it by yourself, but you can still strive in these moments, yeah, for yourself and get better. Yeah.
You alone can do it. You've got to do it, but you can't do it alone.
Yeah. And what inspired you to set this all up?
My absolute conviction that every human being deserves to be loved and to know they are loved. And the conviction that nobody is so messed up and so broken that they can't become whole. Certainly in the faith of the Christian faith that I know it, I have not ever met anybody who has failed to improve significantly when they believe that God loves them, really believe it. But, you know, even outside of my Christian faith, which is pretty key, as you will have gathered, outside of that, human beings are hugely strong. There's immeasurable strength to a human being, but it's how they use that. And we can kill, if you kill the hope in somebody, you've almost killed them. And so if we can give people hope, there's a way through. You can do this. It changes everything. It changes everything. When I'd come back from America and I was pretty lonely and at the bottom, and I'd actually planned how I was going to end my life. I thought that the children would be better off with a better mummy. Mm-hmm. I didn't want them to put them through anything. So it was all very secret. My pain I kept from my husband and children. And I met a couple, Steve and Zoe, and although they didn't understand, they said, we're going to stick with you. Even though my pain and the things that I was telling them were off the scale of horrible, even though they didn't understand about counselling or therapy or psychological issues, they still said, we still love you, we think you can get through this. That hope changed my life overnight. It's like, you mean I can get through this? Because I've spoken to so many people, doctors and so on, who were sort of scratching their faces thinking, what do we do with this woman? And there's these people saying, yeah, you can do this. Yeah, of course you can. We'll hang around until you get through. And that changed things. And I think if all of us meet somebody, and that somebody could be somebody watching today, that says, you can do this. We'll just hang around until you get through. We're not going to go anywhere. We don't know how you're going to do it. but we know that you can. That helps enormously.
Yeah, that's really a powerful statement of hope. So thank you so much for that. Are there other organizations that do similar thing than you do?
I would love to say yes. There are organizations that help people understand DID. Most of those organizations are geared at therapists and counselors and psychologists. And so when you read the stuff, you have to negotiate through the psychological language. But they can help you understand it. There are lots of counselling organizations. As far as I am aware, I've not yet met another organization that will look at both sides. And you see, what we do, we will talk to the church and say, we're not going to target and try to help the individual. So don't send them to me. Because if I help them, I'm helping one person. If I help the helpers, I help a church group or a counselling centre, then they're learning how to help lots of people. And I can talk to the families because I have a family who's lived through it. And I can talk to their pastor because I'm married to a vicar and I've been in church leadership. And I can talk to the victim because I've been there too. So we're able, and now I have somebody else on the team who, like me, has come through. So we can look at all sides of the situation and see it.
That's very helpful. So much experience there.
Yes. So I feel blessed and so fortunate to be able to give what we give. And I'm in a hurry to train other people to do what we're doing.
And what kind of people reach out for your help and why?
We have two different sorts of people. A lot of people who hear about it think somebody at last understands about satanic ritual abuse or about DID or about being so messed up that nobody knows what to do with you. So those are the people think, at last I want to talk to those people because nobody knows what to do with me either. So those people come and then we say, well, is there a church or a group of people that you belong to that we can help? Because it's better if we help them because they're on the spot. They know you, they love you, they're there. You might have to travel hundreds of miles to find it. We want to help them. That's one lot of people. The other people are leaders and counsellors or family members who say, please, will you help us to understand this person? How can we work with them? What can we do that will help? Because there are no quick fixes. We're talking about lifestyle. We're talking about community. We're talking about, as I've said earlier, linking arms and walking together. That's what it's about.
Yeah, I think it's always the point, right? It's a journey, it's a process, and we have to take the time to go through that, and it's fine. And what would you say is your central message?
I think something that we've already talked about is that you're precious. There is something of great worth about you as an individual. Don't let anybody or any memory tell you that you're not important, because that's wrong. That's a lie. It's a big lie. God made, however you see God, however you feel that you've come into being, you're there for a purpose. You're not a mistake. You're beautiful. You may be missing a limb. You may have mental health problems. You may have spots, whatever, but you are beautiful on the inside. And there's that beauty perhaps has not been able to shine. And I would say, so don't give up hope. It will be there. Find some people who can help you do that. But you are all precious and you are all beautiful. So hang on to that. And there's a role to play that each of us have in the world that nobody else can play it. There are things to do that nobody but you can do. So we're all unique.
So true. Thank you. Can you tell us something about truth teams?
Yes, I'd love to. The truth team is when we go to a church or a group of people who want to help somebody who's broken or struggling, whatever they're struggling with, and it is quite often SRA and DID, but sometimes it might be depression or a broken marriage or all kinds of things as well. Then I'll go, I did one yesterday, I will go to them and chat with a whole group of people and say, right, now then, everybody in this group of friends has got a role to play in the person who's hurting in their life. And it isn't all the same. We can't all pretend to be counsellors. We can't all pretend to do something that we're not. It may be the role that somebody has in their life is to perhaps talk to them late at night, twice a week, when they're feeling a bit wobbly inside, because nighttime is quite often a hard time for people who are struggling. There might be somebody who is very practical and can maybe help them do the cooking or go shopping or with their finances or mow the lawn. There might be people who are just buddies, they're just friends. They don't understand anything deep and spiritual or psychological. They just want to be friends. So you go out for coffee and buy big chocolate cakes, which is something that people like to do when I'm around. And or do go to the theatre together or something like that, or have a moan together and grumble together. Everybody has a different role. There may be somebody in that circle, and hopefully is, who can listen when things are very, very bad, and they can listen to your stories of things you might remember about something bad that happened to you. But it's really important that everybody recognizes that they are unique as well. And we work out the place everybody has in their lives and a kind of routine, because people who are survivors very often don't work. Maybe they can't. Maybe they're having to go to doctors or whatever. Maybe they don't want to get out of bed. Maybe they've lost their confidence. There's lots of reasons why people can't work. And so it's, what do I do with my time? Do I spend all day watching television? Or do I wander around the shops? Or do I sit in and drink? Or what do? Do I spend my time with people who aren't good for me? Or perhaps I have a group of friends and we're linking arms together, and I'm their friend and they're mine. And between us all, we work out a schedule for the week that helps us get out and about doing useful things, helping them perhaps, helping my friends, not just being the one who's the poor soul that needs help, and starts to raise their confidence. And so we have this routine. And it's the truth team because every one of them, whether they're playing tennis with you or having coffee or praying or whatever you're doing together, this drip, drip, drip message comes in that you're going to do this. There's hope for you. You're loved. We're going to stick with you. You can get through this. And just drips that love, that courage, that hope into them to get through. And if you have a faith, that it might involve reading the Bible together or praying, depending on your faith and where you're coming from. But absolutely, there are a group of people who will stick around, and nobody gets burnt out or tired or exhausted, because you're only doing what you can give. And if all you can offer is you come for dinner once a week, then that's all you do. That's all. And you do that, and you do it faithfully, and you don't let them down. And if once a month you see them for something, then that's fine. Or it might be that 3 times a week we have a phone call, or every day I send a text, whatever. But together we make up a full life of friendship and love for that individual. And they're not on their own. Whatever they have to go through, we go through it together.
That's so wonderful. Yeah, this connection is so important. I'm just realizing how important it actually is.
Many people don't have families, and it's really family, isn't it?
That's true. So now the question arises, how can people get in touch with you?
Well, you can email. You can email the office, and Marge is lovely at the office, and she will answer your email. And that's office@heartfortruth.org. It's not a difficult email. You can look on our website. There's information on our website, www.heartfortruth.org. And those are the main ways. We will always answer you. And what will happen is that you get in touch with us, and either Marge or I will reply usually within 48 hours. And then we will think about how best to help you. What is best for your situation? If anybody wants to help us or join us, then that's absolutely, we'll consider that as well.
Great service. And of course, we'll put the links below this video.
Thank you. And if anybody wants to give to us as well, that is because we have no government funding. We only survive because people donate to us, but we don't make a charge for our services.
Wow.
So
that's really great.
we survive by kind people just giving to us, and we trust that works out fine.
Mm-hmm.
And it does.
Works out.
it does work out. God does it. Yes.
It's true. Well, Carolyn, we're almost in the end of our interview. Okay. And in the end of our interviews, we always have some incomplete sentences prepared for our guests, which we would like them to complete spontaneously. Would you like to play along?
Okay. Yes, we'll do that.
All right. So the first one is, Jesus is.
Jesus is the answer to every problem.
Children are.
Beautiful.
Healing needs.
Healing needs love.
Helping means.
Helping means accepting people as they are.
Courage is.
Doing it even when you're scared.
Life is.
To be lived to the full.
I am.
Happy.
I wish I could.
Meet everybody that is watching today.
I would never.
Willingly hurt anybody.
For the future, I wish.
for Heart for Truth to be spread around the world?
Love is
eternal.
And now, if you would have the opportunity to send out one message to every person on this planet, which message would that be?
You're loved. Don't give up hope. No, there's nobody like you. There's nobody like you. And God loves you. There are lots of people there that want to love you if they knew you. So love yourself.
Well, thank you so much for these really wonderful words, and of course also for this interesting talk. So I hope this message that you're sending out, the message that healing is always possible, will reach so many people, especially victims, of course,
Yes.
so that they also be able to get the help they need and live a joyful life like you do.
Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure, Amy.
Thank you so much. All the best for you, Carolyn.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Dear viewers at home, thanks for watching. I wish you a wonderful time. Much love from Switzerland.